Hey mate, how's it going? It's Carl.
Hey, hello, hey, how are you?
Yeah, good thanks. How are you? Are you right to? Can you talk, or is it like a bad time?
No, I can talk.
Cool. Sorry to ring you up and stuff. It's part of my like New Year's resolution to ring people more.
Okay.
So I thought I'd give you a call. How are you? How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm just about to go try and find some lunch. How
Oh,
are you
okay.
doing?
Yeah, good. I've not long had breakfast, so I'm probably looking at lunch in a couple of hours.
Yeah, I've not really even done a real breakfast either, so
That's
it's a Sunday.
yeah. Well, that was part of my thing as well because I kind of think like people don't really ring each other anymore, which I think is a shame. But I also get that it's inconvenient, so I always try and ring people on a Sunday to
Yeah.
try and minimise the inconvenience.
Yeah. When something's not happening as much. Yeah, I'm just basically it's like the plan of what the day is starting to come into effect now, and it's like already at the afternoon.
Well, I was going to ask you as well. You used to live in New Zealand and New York, right?
Um, I lived in New York for like just a bit under a year, and then I was in New Zealand for like 3 months, I think.
Okay, and you did stand up in both of those places.
Yeah.
How would you say that stand up differs in those places compared to the UK?
Um. So well, New Zealand is like really small. There's a really small scene, so it was like as soon as we did one gig, we were just like immediately part of the scene.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It was like, oh, we know you, so you are like, here's everything else that's going on. It was so small, so it was really easy to be part of it, which I thought was nice. Which is kind of like maybe a bit like Manchester, maybe.
Yeah, that does sound really nice though. That like, because I think there is kind of like a kingship when you go and do uh, gigs. And kingship's a weird word, isn't it? But like how because you're all comedians, you kind of know you will get on anyway because everyone's in the same boat.
Yeah, it just was like a lot less like compared to New York, where it was like it's obviously just so big and there's so much going on. To be fair, I didn't do loads of like because I was doing that course. I feel like until I got to London, I didn't really ever do the scene of a place, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I didn't get that that's what we were supposed to be doing.
Do you think that's because you were studying at the same time, so it was sort of like you were putting into practice what you were studying rather
Yeah,
than
yeah. I think it was like I'm already around people and we're already doing it, so like going out and doing it in the real world doesn't seem as urgent because I'm already doing it.
yeah, and
But
you're
then,
already making sort of strides into what you want to do
yeah,
anyway.
but then I think that was like I kind of probably it took me a long time to click that you can't. That's not actually doing it. you have to go out and be part of the scene. New York, more people came up to you. So like after a gig, they'd come up to you and be like, "We should go to mics together." And that didn't for the first bit of London. That didn't really ever happen. I don't think.
You should go to the what together? The mics.
Yeah.
Is that like cool New York for open mic?
Well, yeah. Open mic just leaves the first word.
Well, it sort of leads me on to my next question. What was your first gig?
Um. Well, my first gig technically would have been in Southampton because I did that. I have that like on that uni course thing.
Yeah.
So we all had to do our first gig in some like pub, I guess it was. I don't really remember it that well because I just kind of blanked out and then came off stage.
Yeah. Was it like a sort of showcase at the end of the studying?
Yeah, no, and not at the end. It was like quite near the beginning. I think we all just had to go up and do our jokes
Yeah.
or whatever. And then but mine was a bit of a blur, to be honest. I kind of gave up. I don't remember doing that immediately.
I did what? Sorry, you remember doing it?
No, I just came off and was like, I don't remember any of that, and it was pretty immediate effect of like just completely blurred out of my mind.
Yeah.
What was yours?
So I had a similar thing. I did a course at Comedia, and you did like a 3-minute set at the end of that, but that was sort of seen as like your sort of soft launch into. So then my first proper one was for a friend of mine called Sam, and it was called Sam's Stravaganza, and I literally just went up, said the words like as quickly as possible, and then ran away pretty much.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it took me ages to actually like be in the room, I think. But it took me ages to figure out what I was doing. You know, I was having this conversation with Cameron the other day.
Oh, cool.
Of just like when people ask you how long you've been going. So I don't really know what you're really asking for here. The exact number of gigs that I've done, from the time that I did my first gig, from the time that I actually kind of knew what I was doing, or the first, like when I actually was getting like a response and actually felt comfortable doing it, or do you mean when I was actually like part of the scene? These are all very different time periods. I don't know.
But then if you go into that sort of detail, people are like, do you know what? I'll see you later.
Yeah, maybe I should just do it that way, because I'm like, this is a shit. And also the question is meaningless. It doesn't matter. You're just saying it because it's like a question that you ask people. And
it's masking a different question, which is like, how good are you?
Yeah, then it just none of those things add up together, I don't think.
I feel like you can do like gig question bingo, like how long have you been going? Have you travelled far? Do you live in London?
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a gig once where another act said to me, are you high energy or low energy? And it kind of caught me off guard. So I was like, oh.
Like, the question.
I went like medium, and they went, oh, okay. And then they went up to the MC and went, can I go on before him? I was like, you fucking you might as well have just said like, are you shit? And I go, yeah, I'm pretty shit. Okay, yeah, if you could.
Maybe just wanted to know what. That's actually at least is a slightly better question, right? And also it is a better question for knowing where you want to go in, because I quite like going after people who are high energy, because then I can change the mood of the room.
Yeah.
But if you go on after someone who's quite low energy, it's like the shock difference is not as strong.
That's true. And if you go after someone who's the same sort of energy as you,
yeah, doing the same thing.
Yeah,
that's when you go on after someone who's like, in my case, doing like one-liners. So like I'm doing kind of one-liners, but it's not. So it's like it's like we've just seen what this is, and now you're doing it, but like slightly differently, and we're confused.
I do quite like it when I follow like a real proper lad or something, and I can sort of be like, oh, feels like a bit of a structuring error because you put two lads on straight after each other.
Exactly.
You know, like
I like going on after someone who's like really high energy and like really loud and doing loads of like physical jumping around and stuff, because then I can just go and be like, hello. I think it helps change the mood.
I think like contrast is the thing, isn't it? Like, especially if you're doing that sort of thing where you're saying the opposite of what you are, or, you know.
Yeah.
How would you describe your style?
I don't know. How do you describe your style? What do you say? I guess I just always go with what my bio says.
What does your bio say? And then I'll describe my style.
It's like wordplay and odd observations set to a charmingly uncomfortable rhythm. Did
you write that yourself as well?
Yeah.
I feel like every comedian has a bio like that. That is always like just
stuck with it.
It's like when you do a gig and they say, have you got a short bio? It's like saying, oh, have you got something that really should be observed by someone else that you're going to tell me?
Yeah.
I've got a similar one, which I think is like Carl Carzana takes the minutiae of every day, because I like the idea of putting the word minutiae into something that is so stupid, and like delights audience with an offbeat style or something like that.
Yeah.
Although I would probably say that my style is always that I think we spoke about this before in Manchester, that you kind of want to feel like you're operating within the sphere of traditional, like, sort of straight stand-up, as it were, but kind of from like a bit of a sideways slant on it.
Yeah, I always find describing it is really difficult.
in that case, what advice would you give to someone starting out in stand up now?
Uh, 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 uh. I don't know. I don't know. In terms of like writing or like confidence or just general advice.
I guess. I mean, all three.
I think for writing, I'd say like don't even bother saying out loud something that somebody's already said before.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Like if that's good, just what annoys me when I go to stand up shows. I'm like, I've already heard this. What is the point? Like, what is the point in saying something that somebody else has already said?
Yeah.
I also I'm going to go even more extreme than that. What is saying something that somebody else has already thought?
Nice.
Like, that kind of comedy that's like, it's funny because you also think it. I'm like, I've already had these thoughts, so why do I need you to say them back to me? But I understand why people do it. It's because audiences sometimes like laughing at things that are comfortable or that they know is... People like being in comfortable spaces. So when they're like, oh, I know this.
Yeah.
I know what we're supposed to do here. They like it. But I don't know. I'm not really behind that.
I find it such a like catch-22 as well sometimes, because like, say if you're booked onto a gig to open and you're getting paid like whatever, like 50 quid or 60, as much as 60, there's like an obligation for it to be funny and for the audience to like it. And like I often think like if I went and did a set where it was like a bit more avant-garde and it might challenge the audience more, that they might not feel like that was value for money. Like the responsibility sort of outweighs it sometimes. Yeah.
But that's the thing, I think there just needs to be different gigs. It's just as unfortunate that those gigs are the ones that don't really pay very well. And the ones that pay well are the ones that are just like, just tell us about your wife and kids.
and I think for some people as well, like the ambition, I guess like different comedians have different ambitions. So for some people, they might just, their ambition might be to like get on those gigs, become well known for that, and then make their money that way, which I think is a perfectly like great way to make a living. And like I would love to do that. But then also I think there is something to be said for like artistically pushing things a bit and adding different voices.
I think that is the difference, isn't it? That it's like comedy that's on TV and stuff is just, it's just commercial. It's like that is just there for people to make money, which means that it's basically a commercial.
Yeah.
And then the difference between that and like actually doing something that's part of an art form. Because art is supposed to be pushing boundaries and progressing. Otherwise, like, what's the point in it?
Yeah, definitely. I guess it comes to that thing of like, it's that sort of age-old thing of club comic versus like Edinburgh show comic.
Yeah.
This obviously is a question that comedians hate being asked, but what's your best joke, Eryn?
What's my best joke? I know the answer to this question. I always am thinking about which one is the best one, but I think my pointing joke is the best one.
Can you remind me of your pointing joke?
The one that's just like, oh, Eryn, you're so bad at pointing. Who taught you that? It's not very good over the phone. It's a visual joke.
Are you in your house at the minute pointing in a bad way?
Yeah. I'm afraid you're gonna have to do the rest for yourself.
I'll do it as well. It's
yeah, and if you do it badly, that is not my fault.
Well, unfortunately, you're the person who taught me how to point.
Yes. I think that's my best one. That's the one that I think most people come up to me as well and talk about.
I do really like those bits as well where like say after a gig, like people come up to you and say like, oh, that bit, or like, or if the MC comes on and the thing that they've picked out of your set to kind of reference as well, that to me that sort of says like that is a good memorable bit.
Yeah. Although they always come up and do it completely wrong, and I'm like, oh, well, I guess you got the gist of it.
You need to listen harder.
Yeah. Somebody was like, I really like your waving joke. And I was like... Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Stuck with you, but you don't really know what it is.
I should pull him up on it and be like, how dare you come up to me and misquote me.
Yeah. But I was thinking when that person came up to me, I was like, oh, you're just going to go around and tell everybody now that you heard that I have a really good joke, and then you're going to do it and they're not going to get it because you don't know what the joke is. What do you think your best one is?
I think it's sort of difficult to pick out a best one because they're all so good. I think just because every time you write a new bit, you're like, oh, I really like this bit now.
Okay, yeah, so newer, you think?
But I think there's like one bit that seems to get that reaction of people coming up to me at the end and talking about it, or like the MC bringing it up, which is a bit about how I found out that my dad's dad was in the mafia, and then I sort of compare myself to him throughout the course of this bit, and at the end of it I'm like, anyway, now I'm a Don, and like the audience, that was never meant to be a punchline, but the audience always laugh at it, at the idea of me being a Don.
That was not supposed to be a punchline.
Yeah, you know, there's bits where it's like, oh, I see what you've done there. I'm like, yes, thank you. Yeah, that was something I wrote.
Yes.
But then I felt like, because my girlfriend looked into like my family tree and said that my granddad lived in Sicily and he was a Don. I was like, oh, brilliant. So now I'll write this whole bit. And then I asked my mum about it, and she went, oh, no, he couldn't have lived more north of Italy. Like, he was never a mafia. So it's actually bullshit, but I've written it now.
Yeah. What do you want from me? I've already rewritten my family history.
Yeah. I like, when you first started, would you like, for me, it was important that everything was true, whereas now I couldn't care less if I make up stuff. Like, I'll lie if it means I can tell a joke.
There's a really good Tig Notaro bit where she says, like, you know Tig Notaro?
So I looked her up. I wasn't aware of her before, but I think I listened to Cameron's, I think you mentioned it on your interview with him.
Yeah.
The Deviant College one. So I checked out a few clips after that.
Okay, so because I'm not going to be able to do it in her voice, so you're just going to have to imagine. But she basically does this bit that's like, I never understand why comedians do this thing where they say, like, it's true, like, this bit is definitely true. Because they're basically just admitting, like, they're bad at their jobs. Like, they can't make anything up. I just really like that as a bit. It's like, because loads of people, they're like, this bit's really true. I kid you not, this is like from real life. And it's like, why are you telling everybody that you don't know how to make something up?
That's such a good point. It's like comedians and the word genuinely, and I genuinely walked down the road.
It's okay, I don't really care.
Would you say that Tig Notaro, would you count her as one of your comedy influences?
I don't know about influences, because I think I learned about her kind of like later on, but I do probably one of, because I also don't really do she's very like deadpan, so I guess maybe not an influence, but like I definitely take like inspiration from her, because she, like, just the idea that she just allows there to be loads of silence on stage, like she just doesn't follow the rules of pacing like other people do.
Yeah, I love it when a comedian can do that, because I'm kind of the opposite, like, because I like
try to ride that wave, but they just like let it completely die out.
I feel like if I'm sticking just to material, I tend to leave gaps, because if I know that it works, like, I'll leave a gap as if to say, this is your part of the conversation now. And like, for a while it was kind of going too far the other way, where I would like go and do like maybe a 5 at this like little cafe in Brighton for like new material, and I'll get to the end of it, I'll be like, oh, I've tried one joke and spoken to you about your job for 4 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Not useful.
Like, good fun, but you can't get anything out of it really, like, unless that guy follows you around.
Yeah, I think it is just she really sits in those silences, and I'm like, oh, you really just, you're fine with that. And I think there's just something really great about being fine in the silences.
Yeah, I'd agree, because like I've kind of had this, I think epiphany's too strong, but you know how you're always sort of thinking about like the psychology of it, or like the mechanics of stand-up.
Yeah.
I did kind of realise a couple of weeks ago, it's like up to a certain point, if you've been doing stand-up for like, you know, solidly for like maybe 5 or 6 years, you know, or upwards, like at a certain point, material is largely going to be much of a muchness, I think, between comedians. But the thing that I think differs massively is the comedians, like, well, I guess like their mental state, but like how they think about the material, the worth that they give it.
Yeah.
Because I'd say like there's comedians with like amazing material who perhaps don't believe in it and don't sell it well enough. And I'd say the reverse is true as well. Yeah. And so after a while, it just sort of seems like you just have to, as a comedian, believe that what you're saying is funny, even though you've said it 100 times. Or
yeah, but I think there's a difference between like there's different ways to sell it, and people might not really go for the way that Tig Notaro is selling it, which is like, I'm just going to say this really slowly because I know that it's funny, and the like non-reaction doesn't even faze me.
Yeah.
And then there's some people who do it with, and that like their confidence is more loud. I think just generally in life, I prefer not like nonchalance. I prefer when people do something and they don't care about my response, because I'm more likely to be like into it. But as soon as somebody needs a reaction from me, I'm like, no. I'm so anti-peer pressure to the point where if anybody asks me to do something, I'm like, no.
Does that extend to like the audience sort of, because you know how like it's sort of a conversation between the comedian and the audience, like if they're giving you like a cue, you would then just ignore that and, you know, just do what you want.
I think it is. It's probably a really terrible way to be. It's like a really anti-authoritarian, like anti-authority, but also like very anti-peer pressure.
Well, because I suppose like as a comedian, the thing that you're wanting is that the audience laugh, and like so like if the audience aren't laughing, but you're like like say like Tig Notaro, totally cool to just like sit within it. It then creates this weird kind of contrast, and I think you would stick in the audience's mind more because you know you weren't kind of yielding to like any sort of pressure to then go, God, a funny thing happened to me on the way here, or you know whatever.
Yeah,
would be
more.
Well,
there's also Norm Macdonald quote, which is like the funniest situation is when it's unexpected, right? When things don't go as they're supposed to go. So it says that, so when in comedy the idea is to make people laugh, so when people don't laugh, that's like the funniest result you could have. Not laughing because you're doing it to make people laugh and they're not, so that's just like inherently the funniest thing you could possibly do.
Well, amazing. So Eryn, it probably won't surprise you to learn that I recorded all of that.
Okay. It actually did surprise me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's basically I had this idea to do like a podcast called Cold Calling.
Okay. Oh no.
But basically,
I got thanked.
Well, see, this is the worry about it. Julia hates it because she's like, it's so awkward, and like you're just going to fall out with everyone that you know. But I just thought it'd be really funny to like interview someone who doesn't know they're being interviewed.
Yeah, it did feel a bit like an interview, but I was like, look, I don't know. I'm like, who am I to say what somebody's social like approaches are? I'll just go with it.
I rang my mate Alex from Brighton, and he was like, throughout the whole thing, he was like, "Why are you interviewing me? Why are you interviewing me?" And I was like, I'm not. And then at the end, he was like, part of me just thought you're just some weird person who can only like talk to people if you're talking about comedy.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, obviously I did pick up on that, but I was like, that's fine.
Also, I think probably the other weird thing about it is that like with you, it's the first time I've actually rung you.
Yeah.
So that's like another sort of weird thing. It's like, why is Carl ringing me?
Yeah. Like, why are you ringing me? But I just fully bought into the like phoning people thing.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel a bit guilty about that, but it is also true.
You lied so quickly.
I mean, I can ring you and not record it. That's
yeah. Now you're just never going to talk to me again.
That's it. Once I hung up, that is it. Just back to messaging.
This was the end of it.
But yeah, it's a genuinely nice thing to like ring people as well. Maybe I should lead up to it a bit and like ring people a few times, and then
yeah, get them comfortable. Pick a topic for each thing.
Yeah.
Like just today we're talking about baseball, and then talking about stand-up. Notice.
I don't know if I can have a normal phone conversation now without like having notes in front.
Yeah. You're like calling EE, like, and what was your best memory?
Hi, I've got a water bill, but first,
Who inspires you?
Well, it's probably be EDF Energy. I think I just really like what they're doing.
Yeah.
I had to think there so that I didn't say the other one, which is like the racist.
Oh, what's the racist one?
I think that's EDL.
Oh.
That's EDL Energy.
I need to look more into my energy supplies in there.
Yeah, I mean, one letter difference, you'd think they'd probably change it.
Yeah. So close to being. Oh, somebody just named something like the KKN.